Give you a quick background. So I'm going to give you a quick background about why we are here and what we hope to achieve. So when you consider the news, your news timeline every day, we're always saturated with news of crises and conflicts. And but since the advent of solutions journalism and since its increasing popularity over the years, we've been able to have something like a refreshing perspective. And the way we've been doing it is by spotlighting the stories of individuals, the communities and organizations that are responding to some of the social problems that we are daily reporting. And social journalism may sound complex, but it's very, very simple because at its core is going beyond you just identifying problems, but seeking to inspire action and catalyze change. I won't be teaching you about the elements of solutions journalism, but I think we have a panelist that may mention what this looks like. But the reason why we are here is to talk about what this initiative is all about, which is the Solutions Journalism Knowledge Café. And the initiative is introduced as an activity in the second phase of the Solutions Journalism Africa network as a collaborative platform that fosters dialogue and knowledge sharing between policymakers, journalists, and stakeholders across various sectors. And the initiative is expected to generate engagement and potentially more actions around the solution stories being reported. So I'm going to open the floor so that you can have an idea of the panelists that I have with me right now. So I'm going to start by introducing the MD of Nigeria Health Watch, Madam at the top, Madam Vivian. Good afternoon, madam. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Paul. Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's nice seeing your face. And I'd also like to introduce Caroline. How are you doing, Caroline?
Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to listening to this very crucial discussion.
We also have journalists and stakeholders in the sectors that we'll be focusing on today. But before we start talking about the issues around the stories that we'll be highlighting today, something I would like us to do is to start by hearing from some of our stakeholders that are here to have some opening remarks. So we are going to start with Vivian, who is the Managing Director for Nigerian Health Watch. Vivian, welcome, and you can have the floor.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Paul. And welcome to everybody for joining this very important Sojo Knowledge Cafe. I think it's really great to see you all, and it's really, really inspiring to see the great turnout at this knowledge sharing event. As Paul mentioned in the intro, this Knowledge Cafe is part of our Solutions Journalism project that we've implemented with support from the Solutions Journalism Network. And really, it really feeds on the work we're doing already around SOJO, Solutions Journalism. How do we create a platform to share stories and insights that look at how individuals, communities, etc., are responding to challenges and issues in their different communities. As the very essence of solution journalism speaks to, or SOJO, it's all about sharing the good news, not just good news for the sake of good news, but sharing inspiring news about how problems are being solved. You know, there's this adage that if it bleeds, it leads, which basically tells us that negative news often spreads much, much faster than inspiring news. And we all know that because sometimes you pick up a headline and the very mention of things that almost reinforce what we think is negative about the world inspires you to read it, or for people to watch a show or a program or a news report. But often stories that don't get as much prominence are where solutions are being found to problems. So, you know, that for us is why we especially, since we instituted the practice in our work, and since we started the Solutions Journalism Africa initiative, is how can we really, really create a platform where some of those stories are shared. And they're shared not just for the sake of sharing them, but sharing them also from a perspective of sharing information and knowledge. And this really leads on to the thinking behind having these knowledge cafes. How can we create a platform where, journalists, policymakers, individuals, etc., are able to talk about some of the challenges we face right now in the country and broader? And how can we create this platform to really, really share how these issues can be addressed? How can we use our different knowledge? Because we all come to many of these issues with a completely different lens. For example, some of the focus issues are like education, agriculture, health. But how can we come to them with the lens we have and with the knowledge we have, and sharing some of that with other individuals who have a similar lens to also find solutions to some of these problems? So that's what I'm particularly excited about with this Knowledge Cafe. And I really, really look forward to hearing some of the insights that will be shared today. So really, really lovely having you all. Really, really happy you're able to join us this afternoon, and really look forward to many of the discussions we're going to now have. So I'll hand over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vivian. And you're absolutely right. It's an exciting opportunity to see what I consider as probably the next chapter and one of the key values that we hope to achieve with Solutions Journalism. So I'm going to this will now bring in Caroline. Caroline to also give us her thoughts and opening remarks before we start this conversation.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Vivian. Just to say a big thank you to the organizers of this engagement, that is Nigeria Health Watch, Vivian and her team. We are really grateful because, as Vivian has mentioned, it's the first time we are holding such an engagement virtually, and we are hoping to also have 2 physical engagements before this season ends, that is by February next year. So we are really excited. We are looking forward to having that discussion with stakeholders, with news sources, because as we say, we do not want stories to die. As we say in journalism on your platform, we want to amplify, the stories that we are doing. Solution journalism has gained a lot of traction over the years. So how else can we ensure that we are amplifying the stories that we are doing? By sharing our knowledge, by sharing the insights, the evidence that we've gathered, and making sure that the stakeholders, and especially policymakers, get to hear about these insights. And one way we discussed with the team is to ensure that we're having such discussions whereby we bring all key stakeholders on the same platform to discuss, how these stories have impacted lives in communities. So we are really excited that this has taken off. This is just one of the projects that we're having in Nigeria. We have quite a number. We are working with community radio stations across the region in Nigeria. But apart from that, we are also working with journalism schools across Nigeria. And the same is happening in East Africa, whereby we're working very closely with Science Africa. And they're also having capacity building projects with journalists in the region, and also working with journalism schools. So we're really excited that this has taken off, and we're hoping that at the end of this session that we'll come out with more insights, more knowledge, understanding the limitations and challenges. And that's what solution journalism is all about. So looking forward to listening to this discussion, and thanks Vivian and the team once again.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and we are really happy to have this conversation. And before we go to our policy stakeholders panel, I would also like to welcome everybody that is on this call. I know we have a lot of people already that are joining us. As I always like to start with, if you are joining us on this Zoom platform, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to actively engaging with you, but we'd like to know more about you, where you're joining us from and who you are. So if you can engage with us using the chat box, and we would like to know you and where you are joining us from. Please actively engage with us, interact with us. And if you're on this Zoom platform and you have specific questions, I encourage you to put your questions on the Q&A section of the Zoom platform. I also want to say a quick shout out to everybody joining us live on other platforms. And if you are watching, whichever platform you are watching this live stream on, please interact with us. Let us know your name and where you are joining us from and who you are and what you think about the subject for today. And we are going to have a really, really interesting deliberation. And I would like to bring up some of our key stakeholders that are with us today. Let me start by introducing Dr. Michael Adigboye. How are you doing today, Dr. Michael? Can you hear me properly, Dr. Michael?
It's muted.
Sorry. Oh, your mic is off. You are muted, Dr. Michael. So what Dr. Michael tells on his audio, Dr. Michael Adigboye is a consultant, is a retired deputy director at the Department of Agriculture, Land and Climate Change Management Services at the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Dr. Michael, I think can we...
I'm hearing you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I'm hearing you. Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, I hope you are enjoying the deliberation so far.
Yes.
I would also like to introduce Dr. Babajide Adebisi. I think he's also live with us today. Dr. Babajide.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the three of us are going to have a very brief conversation around the subject of climate change. And by the time we go to the story that we'll be highlighting today, we'll be attempting to bridge the gap between what journalists are reporting and what the reality is at the front line. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Michael. You've worked extensively in the government sector, so we can comfortably know that you can share insights from the policymaker perspective. So let's talk about what works in the area of agriculture, in the area of integrating climate response and into the interventions that government puts forward. And what are your thoughts regarding the subject of discussion today? So I would like to start by helping letting you guide us on what the reality is on getting government intervention on issues.
Thank you very much. Just as I've been introduced, I'm Dr. Michael Adigboye, and I retired from the Federal Ministry of Agric. And before my retirement, I got to the position of Deputy Director in the Department of Agric, Land and Climate Change Management Services. I worked for 31.5 years before my retirement. And now I'm a consultant in the area of agriculture, particularly in the area of policy and sustainable issues, soil health and climate change management, and gender issues, and extension and rural economic development. When it comes to the issue of climate change, it is a serious matter that everybody has come to know about now, whether fully or partially. Some people don't know exactly, but they are feeling the impact. And it has become an important issue for the government of Nigeria. Series of projects, budget information has been passed from the government to the citizen about it to create awareness. And a series of trainings have been organized, sponsored by both government and non-governmental organizations, national and international bodies. And I've been privileged to attend many of such. So the problem that climate change has created is a big problem affecting the agricultural system and food system in particular. And we cannot shy away from the fact that it is becoming a threat to food security in Nigeria. I believe not only in Nigeria, even in part of many parts of the world, particularly in Africa, as a result of decreasing in crop yield and increase in pests and diseases affecting both plant, crop, and animal. So we have that one. And this type of deliberation is very important to share the knowledge and plan on how to address the issue. And I'm very happy to be part of it. As we are going, I'll be interested to know the direction of where we are going and what is expected of me in particular.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I also like to bring on stage and quickly Mr. Babajide Adebisi to also share thoughts on this issue that we are talking about, at least some forms of introduction and talk about the organization. And yes, so Mr. Babajide, sorry if I'm giving you PhD. Can you hear me, Mr.
I can hear you loud and clear, but sorry, I have connectivity challenges, so might not be able to put on my video.
It's fine.
Okay, but thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to Dr. Adegboye for laying the foundation. I think he has said a lot within this short span of time. So my name is Babajide Adebisi. I work for Nutrition International. I'm the Deputy Country Director for the Nigeria Country Office. Just a little background on Nutrition International. We've been in existence for over 30 years, leading as part of the global effort to fight malnutrition, because we believe that the right nutrition at the right time builds the capacity to dream, and also for children or for everybody to develop to their fullest potential. And this we do by working by delivering nutrition impact at the lowest cost, because we believe that what cannot be replicated should not even be promoted. So we'll try to look at cost effectiveness in trying to look at what we need to work on, or what we need to partner with government to implement. Like I said, we're a global organization. So we have our headquarters in Canada, and we're in 13 different countries. In 13, we have 10 core offices and 3 regional offices across the globe. So going back to the subject area, what we're talking about. So for us, like what Dr. Adegboye said, we started seeing some of the outcomes or some of the effects of climate change as it affects food security. Like I said, we are majorly focused on nutrition, and we can definitely say that we've seen the interconnectivity between climate change, agriculture, food security, and nutrition security. Which impact is not only global, but we are also feeling it in Nigeria presently, based on so many changes, looking at crop yields, looking at livestock productivity, looking at various different agri interventions, and we are seeing the gaps. We are seeing where efforts need to be intensified to be able to minimize what the effects are. We are also seeing how climate change is gradually decreasing the food quantity, access to food. We can see decrease in dietary diversity. That is the choices people can make when it comes to different diet or different meals. We've seen decrease in food nutrient content. The nutrient content in different foods. We've seen a bit of reduction, especially from results we get from some of our research institutes. And we've also seen the reduction in availability of nutritious foods. Right now, people just take what they can find, not what they want, not based on how nutritious some of those foods are. So those are some of the things we are presently seeing, which impacts negatively amongst the urban poor and also the vulnerable people across Nigeria. So I think I will also just start with that, and definitely we'll provide more insight as we go on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, the two of you. Mr. Bajide, I have a quick question for you. What is your experience with working with journalists to communicate these challenges and to educate the general public? So what do you think is going well, and what gaps do you still think exist in the way your organization or in the way you see journalists communicating and reporting on these issues?
Well, I think definitely everyone can do better. I think what we've done so far is to support journalists, especially we've worked with the Federal Ministry of Information to have a health and nutrition media team. We were part of the organization that supported the formation. And this is because we've come to realize that most often we talk among ourselves, but we do not pass the right information across. And at times when we also pass the information across, we pass it using our programming jargons, which most often the populace do not really understand. So we've come to realize the importance of using appropriately trained personnel like the media to be able to disseminate information as appropriate. So we've started working intensively with journalists using this health and nutrition media team, and also across the various states where we also implement activities. We also try to include the media in every activity that we do in those states. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I also have a similar question for Dr. Michael. During your active years at the ministry, journalists often say they desire to have this relationship with, let me not say relationship, but access to ministries, officials in the ministry. So how was that like for you? And what insights can you give journalists that on this on how to better engage with government officials in ministries like the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security?
Well, thank you very much. There has been a very good relationship between the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, especially in the area of climate change now. The few information that they are able to get, they have been broadcasting it very well. The only problem that may arise is when they don't know where to go exactly to get the information, particularly when it comes to the issue of civil service. We have bureaucracy. There are some information that even a director cannot give, that they can get only from the permanent secretary or the minister. So that one may reduce their work. So that is the only thing. But when they know where to go and what to ask for, they will get it, and they have been doing fine, at least for now, as I know. We have no problem with them.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. And talking about this particular sector, Dr. Michael, if you look at agriculture in Nigeria and the plight of farmers in different parts of Nigeria, there's always this desire to improve their productivity and to also get the best out of their efforts. So from the baseline, what do you think is still existing that would actually need some forms of improvement regarding the relationship between the agricultural ministry and farmers that are responsible, that are the center of food security in Nigeria? So what insights can you give us regarding how things work in agriculture in Nigeria? Oh, the network. Dr. Michael, did you hear that question? So while we are waiting for Dr. Michael,
Yeah.
did you hear my question?
There was a disconnection. I couldn't hear towards the end.
Okay. The question is that we would like to, for those that are not joining us from Nigeria or those that are not familiar with the sector, what can you give us insight regarding, as a baseline, regarding the relationship between agricultural ministry as a government establishment and the last mile farmer that is expected to benefit from what the ministry is doing?
Okay, thank you very much. To benefit the farmers that are the engine room for our food production, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has put in place the plan and the program that makes it easy. At least since year 2012, we have each state in Nigeria having a replicate of Federal Ministry of Agric. And we have one director there coordinating the Federal Ministry of Agriculture in every state. So whatsoever anybody in the states want to hear or know about the activities of federal government, such an information can be gotten from the state headquarters without getting to Abuja. And whatever the federal government wants to give to the farmer gets to that office through the head of that office that we call the state coordinator. And the state coordinator works directly with the commissioner of agric in the states and program manager of the agri development of that state. So 3 of them in the state pivot the agriculture in every state. And they are the people that can get the information from the federal to the farmers. Federal government in Abuja cannot get to individual farmer in every state. So whether intervention or grants whatsoever gets to the farmers through the states, and the states have the coordinators, that's the Federal Ministry of Agri coordinator, Commissioner of Agric, and program manager of agric development project program in the state. That's how we get to the farmers.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Mr. Badida, I'd like to bring you in. What does your own structure look like, and how can we say, how will you describe the efficiency of your own last mile structure in getting your guidance, advices, or potential interventions to people at the front line that should actually benefit or implement what you desire to implement from your organization?
I'm sorry, I lost you for a few seconds. Please, can you repeat the question?
So my question is, what is your own structure like, and how do you, from the perspective of your organization, which is a non-governmental organization, actively engage and get your guidances, interventions, and advices to those at the front line that are expected to implement or benefit from your guidances?
So I think one of the things we've done so far is not to replicate or not to duplicate government efforts, to be able to ensure that we use what government structures are out there, because we believe in improving or sustaining what government is doing is the best thing. So most information are always through government, different government departments or units that are relevant for the intervention we are working on. For example, in the area of health, which is also part of what we work on, we work through the various Ministry of Health, the various primary healthcare development agencies. And that is because, like I said in my initial statement, there's a link between the effect of climate change with nutrition and health. And we are coming in the area of nutrition and health to be able to see how best to address some of the things we are presently seeing. So working with this structure helps to be able to improve the structures, to be able to provide the necessary services as required on the field. But just to deviate a bit also, I think government have also been able to improve on the extension services that they provide to farmers. I think there's been a tremendous effort to reduce the ratio of extension workers to farmers, which helps to disseminate information to these farmers as that's required. Because it's one thing to have research findings, to have new policies sitting in the state capital or sitting in Abuja. Is another thing to disseminate it appropriately in a language that the farmers will understand, for them to be able to utilize what needs to be done. And I think government has been able to do that, although there's still some gap to be able to get to what the ideal global practice would be when it comes to extension services. But at least we've seen that effort in trying to get that done. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Still with you, Mr. Bajide. I know that one of the goals that your organization aims to achieve is tackling vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And I think one of the gains of science over the years has been the expansion in the science capacity to find a way to fortify staple foods with the essential nutrients. What am I trying to say? There has to be a time that cooking oil are just cooking oil, but at some point with the introduction of fortification with vitamins to prevent a number of conditions increased. Also cereals now are loaded with lots of vitamins. In Nigeria, we see cassava that is being fortified with vitamins, so that these staple foods that our people eat routinely, when somebody is eating a meal, you are able to get more from that meal than you would have to in ages past. So how will you describe the evolution in that approach, and how would you also describe the success of communicating how that structure exists to people in order to get the best out of the meals that they are getting without having to eat loads of food? So my question is communicating food fortification as a way of addressing malnutrition. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Bajide?
Okay, thank you so much. And I think you've rightly spelt it out on one of the approaches that is being used to be able to ensure that the density or nutrient density in foods are properly maintained. And one area is the one you mentioned of food fortification. So I think for food fortification in Nigeria, this has been there's been an enlarged stakeholders engagement. We've had the Research Institute, we've had the relevant government parastatals, we've had Ministry of Information, we've had other stakeholders as part of what we call the National Food Fortification Alliance, which also has different partners. And this Food Fortification Alliance meets regularly to be able to deliberate, to be able to look at what is working, what is not working, and how best to be able to ensure that information are passed across appropriately using the information subsector or if subunit that we have within the alliance to ensure that everybody understands what is going on. It has been a gradual process. So the fortification process has started with when government solicited for industries to do voluntary fortification to when it became a mandatory fortification across industries, looking at different food vehicles that we felt almost everybody will eat on a daily basis. And based on that, the added nutrients will be able to supply what their daily dietary allowance will be. We've also had instances of where the regulatory parastatals have also have to come in to enforce this mandatory fortification, just to ensure that people are not just taking food in without information described in the food labels being in the right proportion as described. So it's been a process. And, one of the reasons why food fortification is very important is, as I mentioned before, coming back to a bit to climate change, is that the nutrient density of some of the foods that we get from Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the nutrient content of some of the food that we still get based on this climate change is diminishing, and there's a need for us to add those nutrients that we feel are public health concern into them to be able to be beneficial to people. So if you look at some of the studies that we've seen in recent while, we've seen studies that have shown that with increased temperature and elevated carbon dioxide, staple food crops like wheat, corn, rice, and soy may lose about 10% of their zinc, 5% of their iron, and 8% of their protein content, which means that we have, after harvesting, there has to be an intentional effort to.
Mr. Bajid, are you there? While waiting for Mr. Babajide.
To people. Hello?
Yes, please. Okay, you went off for a few seconds, but you can continue your thoughts.
Okay, so sorry. So I was just trying to say that the present nutrient density of foods that we see coming from our farms in some places have shown a decrease in the nutrient content. And I gave some examples from some of the studies that have been done where about as much as 10% of zinc, 5% of iron, and about 8% of protein content on some of the food, looking at wheat, corn, rice, and soy, have been lost based on effects from climate change, which means an intentional effort has to be put in place for some of these nutrients to be added. And that's the whole essence of food fortification presently being implemented across the world and also in Nigeria. And this is also because we are also concerned about the micronutrient deficiency that we presently have, which we do not want to increase based on effects from the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bajide, for that session, for that interactive session. And I'm tempted to bring Mr. Charles in to also contribute to it, but don't worry, we'll have that session with him. And I would like to recognize some of the attendees that have engaged with us in the chat box. Thank you for joining us, Abdulkadir Abubakar from Niger, Mr. Toyi Babalola from Premium Times. Thank you very much for joining us. Aisha Gambo from Kaduna with the News Agency of Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Lekon Oluto for doing it. Thank you very much for joining us, and several others. Bamas Victoria, the ICI. Thank you very much for joining us. I really want to welcome everybody. If you've not told us where you are joining us from, if you've not engaged with us with the chat box, please do so. Interact with us, and we'll be glad to learn more about you and what you'd like to do. And if you desire to make a contribution, you can do that by using the comment box, the chat box, or by raising your hand, and we'll see if we can let you speak for a little while. I think one of the things that as Nigerians, one of the meals that I think when you want to say that you are having fun is chicken and chips. And for many that don't know, this is a very popular meal. Sometimes in some parts of the world, it's a staple meal that people take every day. While in some parts of the world, actually you can make a lot from the material that is used in producing chips. So which makes it a very important product that any farmer that is producing it would actually have could actually be potentially resourceful, considering the number of food chains, food outlets in Nigeria that are selling chicken and chips. But one of the problems that we discussed, as you would have heard from our conversation with Mr. Bajide, is that sometimes fortification could help. Fortification could be one of the reasons why you introduce scientific element into it. But in addition to fortification with nutrients, some of the benefits that you can put in materials in crops like potato is to make them more resilient to diseases and to make them be able to withstand more. And so one of the goals of genetic manipulations, I don't want to go too techy, but actually lay the background for this story that one of our journalists wrote about, is the ability to let some of these crops withstand some diseases. And in this really, really good story that was written by one of our panelists today, I'm talking about the story that was published by David Trust. We are seeing how a particular crop that is able to withstand a particular disease is making difference in the life of some farmers in Nigeria. And so that is a deliberation that we are trying to have. I'm going to have that conversation with the journalists right now, and so that we can have the background of how the whole story came together. I'm just, if you know what, have an idea what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to get the journalists to join us on the panel, but I'm not able to do that. So if I can get tech support to get Jude Leonardo Okafor on the panel, I would really, really appreciate it. Jude, I see you, but can you join us? Can you turn on your camera? Jude is here, but we can't add Jude. Jude, are you here? Are you here with us, Jude?
He's here, but looks like he's not
Yes.
joined with audio. Hi, Judd.
Hi, Judd, are you here with us? While waiting for Judd, we also have another. Judd, are you with us? We need you to be with us. While waiting for Judd, and I really put a lot into setting up that story, that introduction. But Judd, you need to join us as soon as possible. So if you follow the deliberation that we had with on climate change, a lot of journalists, a lot of farmers, even those that are quite that have all of these resources, there is a little you can do regarding getting people to change. Oh, Jude is here. Jude, how are you doing today, Jude? Your mic is off, but we are glad that you can join us, Jude.
Very well. Good afternoon or good evening, rather.
Yes, how are you doing, Jude?
Very well.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed reading your story. It was really, really well written. And I think for me, one of the things, okay, don't let me just keep that part for those that are not aware of Jude's story. Jude, can you quickly tell them what the story is all about before I start asking you questions?
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the story is about losses in potato harvest. I once had an experience where I bought a whole sizable bunch of potatoes I could have used for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then just in one morning, the entire purchase was lost. So after that, I came across something coming out of Plateau State, where there are a lot of potato farmers, something along the lines of having potatoes that are resistant to blight, and that's kind of just triggered the entire story. So that's where everything started, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. Tell me, let's talk about your interaction with Sarah. I think is a very, very good character in the story. So how did you find Sarah, and how do you personally think Sarah's story is important in communicating and telling the story?
Okay, so actually I found the breeding program before I found Sarah. So I found Sarah through the breeding program. So it was like in reverse. So one thing I found touching about her was how she had suffered the impact of late blight. Rather, her crop has suffered the impact of late blight for a very long period of time. In fact, she was even growing tired or despondent about continuing cropping potatoes until she became a part of the what you call field trials for some of these for the resistant varieties that were coming out of the National Root Crop Research Institute. So it was like what you'd call a demonstration farm. So she was part of it. And it was the first step to show other farmers that something different was possible. You didn't have to lose your entire harvest or crop in one season or season after farming season, and just give up altogether. So I found her insightful.
Yeah, me too. I think I also connected well with Sarah's story. Then another interesting character in the story is Isaiah, who has been farming potato for 40 years. So I think, yes. So what's also stood out regarding Isaiah's story and how it connected to what you were working on in your story?
It was more or less the same thing as Sarah. What stood out for me in this case was that he was willing to go on because he had hope, even though some of his fellow growers had already given up altogether. But he being persevering and being open to change, or maybe not change because he wasn't really sure what was going to happen, but he was willing to put a foot out there, or put a foot in the door and see what else was possible apart from just giving up and counting his losses. But he was willing to take that step forward, and he saw a difference, and he could become an example for others who had given up or who would maybe want to come back into the fold in the next cropping season.
Okay, and okay, from a journalist perspective, I'm curious to know, is this your first solutions journalism story?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So for how long have you been working on solutions journalism stories, and how will you describe the experience personally compared with writing non-social stories?
You're putting me on the spot there. Yeah, so I think I would like to say that for most people who begin writing all negative stories about development and all of that, everything going wrong, stepping into solution journalism can be quite challenging to wrap your head around if you're used to that sort of mentality of always looking for what's wrong. Now looking for what's right or what could possibly go right can be a bit of a steep climb. But when you're able to do that and begin to see things positively, it's not that things are not going wrong. It's not that you're not writing about things going wrong, but you are now looking at it through a different kind of lens. So it doesn't always become all gloom and doom, all blood and gore, death and destruction. You get to look at something positive, and it's lightens your mental health in a way. And from one person to the other, it just starts with one person. It begins to spread out across your writing network, the network of people that you associate with, people you get information from, and from there it just snowballs.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before, I would also like to add Adam. Adam, can you join us? Adam and Enoch. Adam, are you here with us?
I'm with you, Paul. I can hear you.
How are you doing today, Adam? Thank you for joining us today.
I'm good. Good to see you too.
It's good to see you also. And so I would like to also have this conversation. Your home story is on climate. I think one of the things when I was reading, okay, for those that, oh, sorry, I thought everybody has read. I shouldn't be assuming that everybody has read Adam's story. Is Enoch also here with us? Yes, I think Enoch is.
I don't know if he has joined.
Good afternoon.
Enoch, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Enoch.
Yeah, can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm very fine, thank you. How do you do?
I'm doing well. We'd like to see your face, Enoch. Are you shy? Are you camera shy?
No, I'm not. So, back here.
Yeah, yes. So I think something for those that have not read, let me quickly share so that it won't be like I'm being partial. So Adam and Stephen, this is a jointly written story, and the focus of the story was how farmers are being helped in adopting climate resilience method to their farming. So did that summarize your story well, Stephen?
Exactly.
Yes. And one of the places I would like to start is, how did you come up with this idea? How did you get this story idea?
So who are you asking between us, Paul?
Yes, it's your story. Adam and Stephen, is your story.
Our own case is a bit tricky in terms, so I think you have to be specific in when asking the questions. And let me help you with some guidelines, some insight into how that story came about.
Okay.
He actually, in terms of, if you want to ask questions about interactions with the farmers themselves, Stephen is in the best position to answer that because he was the one that engaged with them. But if you want to ask questions generally about the story, how the idea came, interaction with other stakeholders in the story beyond then I'm happy to answer such questions. I hope this help you in asking your questions, and it's always good to direct the questions to any one of us so that we know who is asking, who's responding rather. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. I understand. When it's jointly written stories, I also come to this regarding collaborative stories in solutions journalism. So let's start with you, Adam. The question is, who came up with the idea? How did you land on the idea? So that's it. Let's start with the genesis of the story.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for that question. The idea came, I would say, with my participation in the induction workshop for the Nigeria Health Watch Solutions Journalism Fellowship that I participated in 2022. I remember at the workshop where we have been taken through what solutions journalism was about. We were asked to start brainstorming of ideas for 2 stories that we are going to work on as fellows or on the under the fellowship. And because already I was aware of South Africa, we have covered the engagements previously. So I was aware of the kind of, projects they were intervening, including their intervention in the area of building, help farmers adapt climate resilient measures and their crop production activities. So naturally, because I was aware of South Africa's work and I found myself in this fellowship, it was easy coming up with this idea because I already knew what they were doing before I joined the fellowship. So it was very easy for me to say, why not?
Oh no, Adam. Adam, are you still there? Stephen, can you continue from that?
All right. So just like
consider this, innovative idea of solutions to to our crop productivity challenge.
Okay. Thank you very much. To you, Stephen. So let's talk about this this story. I am a freelance journalist, so I always commend people that are able to pull off collaborative work. So I'm always saying, oh, kudos. So how was that experience with it, working with Adam? How would you describe doing solutions journalism from the perspective of collaborative approach?
So doing this story was quite interesting because, first of all, we understood the urgent need to address climate change impacts in Nigerian farmers because most of them they complain of having low yield, and most of them. Okay, there's this particular person who I engaged with. His name is one of the farmers, Hassan, who said he is no longer in charge of his family because he could not, provide for his family as he used to do because of the impact of climate change. And because of that, he had low self-esteem because at some point towards his brothers and some of his relatives that were helping him with supporting his family. But after approaching his family with the nature-based solutions, he was able to overcome most of the challenges. And working with Adam Okali has helped me to understand the power of working together because there are some places which, some part of the story which I would say I wasn't, which wasn't my strong hold, yes, because I'm used to writing investigations. The government has looted this has stolen that. But when I understood the power of writing solution stories and writing it collaboratively,
it's recording in progress.
Ignore that, just ignore it.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay, so all right. So when I worked on the story together with him, it really opened my eyes to different aspects of journalism because just like Mr. Jude said before we came on, for journalists who are used to writing investigations about government, it's going to be somewhat difficult writing about progress because at some point I said, okay, are we not trying to trace the government effort or trying to praise a particular NGO? So when he explained some things to me, together with some person which I understood the power. I understood the power of solution journalism. And working together with him, has been although it was easy because there was a lot back and forth. I'll do some things and say, okay, no, it's not like this. You have to change it because at some point I was taking the story. I brought out some flaws of the government, some evidence of the government, but he was like, we have to tell the story in a way that will bring about impact, in a way that will not look antagonistic. So working with him, taught a lot of things and different approaches to writing stories.
Thank you very much to all our journalists. And I think we'll now have this deliberation between the journalists and the stakeholders. So allow me to welcome Mr. Mohamed Ibrahim, who is a program officer at Surge Africa. How are you doing today, Mr. Mohamed?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you.
And so in 5 seconds, oh no, that's too harsh. That's not nice. In 30 seconds, tell our participants what Surge Africa is all about.
Well, South Africa is an organization based in Kano, and our work rallies around issues around climate change with 3 focused thematic areas, which are 1 is policy, 2 is media, and 3 resilience building, where we engage with grassroots communities to build their resilience to the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
That's spot on. And so Enoch and Stevens and Adam's story looked at resilience, trying to reorientate farmers on how to be climate change sensitive in the way that they carry out their agriculture. So what are your thoughts on this particular subject before I yield the floor to Stephen and Adam to directly engage with you?
Yeah, well, especially taking a look at the focus area of the project, which is the northwestern part of Nigeria, where a majority of people's livelihoods depends on agriculture, and they have been battling with issues around desert encroachment and land degradation. So coming up with this initiative where we mainstream ecosystem restoration and agroforestry is actually a great strategy towards addressing the issue of the environmental impacts of climate change in the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Stephen and Adam, you have Mr. Mohammed. How do you desire that the findings from your story be transformed into active change? Stephen, Adam, any one of you can jump on this.
Okay, let me come in, Paul. Sorry, I got disconnected while I was speaking earlier. In terms of the findings of this story, if you read it, you realize the major limitation we raised was not, in terms of the limitation of the intervention itself, but the capacity of South Africa, which is a non-profit and one that is small and constrained, by lack of resources to reach more farmers, even in Kano, not to talk of other states and not to talk of, in other regions of the country. What we want to see is, like we have clearly stated in the story, is government coming up with climate resilient policies that will help them, work with NGOs, non-profits such as South Africa to implement this kind of interventions on a larger scale. I think there's no better solution to this challenge because the government ultimately, it is their own sole responsibility to provide solutions to these challenges. And non-profits such as South Africa only come in to support. So if what we see, as the best way forward is governments, not just in Kano, but in other parts of, in other states in the region and beyond, working with organizations such as South Africa to really scale these innovative interventions that are nature-based, that are organic, and that are very sustainable to other farmers in other regions of Nigeria.
It's Cafe. So, Mr. Mohammed, how do you respond?
Yeah, well, with regards to that, actually, we have been engaging stakeholders, not just in Kano, but across the region for them to better understand the strategy and how best they can contribute in scaling up the initiative. And while doing that, we were able to come up with mainstreaming initiatives as well that attach to the project, which is called JG Restoration, where we come up with a community engagement strategy where we are mobilizing resources to not only support smallholder farmers in the community, but ensure that we build the capacity of young people within the community to an extent of providing scholarships to some of the community members to study courses related to environmental issues, forest restoration, among others, as well as we developed a seed bank where we have about 50 different indigenous seeds that are being preserved to ensure that our indigenous species of crops and trees are being preserved, because today we are battling with issues around the exploration of GMOs. And of course, our indigenous species, if care is not taken, will be going extinct. And also with regards to that, we're able to host the Northwest Commissioners Summit on Climate Change and Environment earlier in February this year, which brings the 7 environmental commissioners of environment and their House Committee chairman on climate change and environment within the states in order to develop strategic ideas towards using multifaceted approaches to address this problem. And we left the summit with a declaration called the Kano Declaration on Climate Change and Environment, which is a pathway towards ensuring that this initiative is scaled up and all hands are on deck towards addressing this all-encompassing issue. Thank you. I think you are muted.
Oh, I can't hear
Yeah,
you.
Yeah, I saw that, and I've already said like 3 sentences now. So I said I also want to bring some of our panelists to have their thoughts on this, and I want Dr. Michael to have his thoughts, and I also want to hear from Nutritional International. But Mr. Mohammed, you opened something that I was waiting to expand, which is Jude's story that focused on GMOs, and I think we can start having this robust conversation. So let's start with Jude, and since Mr. Mohammed is magnanimous enough to also talk on the current state of GMO discussions. So Jude, we have the key stakeholders represented by Mr. Mohammed, the amazing team from Nutrition International, which I've just been told that the country director of Nutrition International is with us, Dr. Osita Okonkwo. Thank you very much for joining us. So Jude, you have the policy stakeholders and in this sector. What question do you have for them, and how do you desire your stories, findings to be applied?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, my throat is a bit dry. So I'll be very curious as to how experts see concerns about GMO. Generally, we understand what GMOs are, but the question about GMOs is what is being done, what is being used, to what extent. We know, of course, we've had GMOs around us for quite a number of years. There have been a lot of it coming out of IATA, the Crop Research Institute. We've seen in cowpea and maize. The question is, what was done? What was the challenge that bioengineering tried to solve? What was the challenge it tried to solve? And to what extent was the manipulation being done? And how are experts able to communicate these changes in a way that does not frighten the public? Because so when the public hears about GMO, they think about maybe monster beans or monster potatoes or whatever. Are experts open enough to speak clearly about what was done and how it was done and the potential challenges or impact that it could have?
Okay.
That's something I would like for experts to be more open and clear about.
Okay. Before I put Mr. Mohammed, I'll give Mr. Mohammed some time to think about his response, and also the amazing team from Nutritional International. But I also want the lead investigator in the study that Jude's story was written on to also share insights on this. I'm talking about Dr. Charles. Dr. Charles Amadi, are you able to talk?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, I would have jumped in on that if if you didn't call me.
Jump. This is the time for you to jump. I want you to dive.
No, because it's a wonderful opportunity to at least shed more light on GMOs, particularly in this instance, GMO potato that is in the pipeline. Yeah, first of all, the issue is what challenges is it addressing? For the biotech potatoes is addressing the problem of late blight because it is immune to late blight. So what that means is that blight will not affect it, and so farmers will not need to spray fungicides to produce it. And we know that currently, with the recurrent outbreaks of late blight in the potato growing areas of the country, if you don't spray fungicides, you will not harvest anything. So that will be like a permanent solution to that challenge. And then,
yeah.
I hope you are still hearing me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So, and then, how was the potatoes engineered? I think that's also another source of concern. And for the biotech potatoes, what happened is that the resistance found naturally in the wild relatives of potato were copied. You know, the potatoes we eat is Solanum tuberosum, but there are other solanaceous species that are not, you know, the tuberosum type, but they are resistant to lead blight. So scientists identified the genes that made them resistant, then cloned them, that's copied them, and then transferred them into farmer-preferred potato varieties. So varieties that were hitherto susceptible to lead blight became resistant because they now have those genes from the wild relatives of potato that conferred that resistance. So these genes were already there in nature. And even before the intervention of biotechnology, breeders have conventionally tried to do what we call interspecific crosses. That is crossing from one species to the other. They have tried to cross from these wild relatives into the cultivated potato. And it took 40 years to transfer just one gene from Solanum forager into the cultivated potato. But this is what biotechnology is achieving within a space of 6-7 years. So you can see a tremendous reduction in time. Again, because these genes are naturally occurring genes, there is really no, they've been there in nature. There's really no possibility that they will now become harmful because they are now in potato. So these are, well, we know that every technology that is new, comes with some kind of skepticism, virtually everything. When the aircraft started to fly, people were not comfortable to enter them, but now we are all comfortable flying up and down. So that is how it is. We understand the apprehension, but we can assure with human certainty that these products are safe. And the problem they are addressing is really tremendous, because when you look at it from the other way, the fungicides that are presently being used, if they are not properly applied, and we know that many of our farmers don't follow rules. So most of these fungicides end up in places where they're not supposed to be. And you have a lot of residual effects, and which causes even greater harm to the environment. So apart from mitigating lead blight, these biotic potatoes and GMOs will naturally increase yield, and that will improve food security and reduce the use of harmful pesticides, and of course, reduce the cost of production, because these pesticides are also impacting on the cost of production. So we actually expect that they will lead to a reduction even in the prices of food and the hyperinflation we're having. Maybe I should stop there.
Yes, you're already delivering a presentation at a scientific conference. The next thing I was waiting for is for you to show us, when you go to conferences, the poster presentation, you are already talking abstract, methodology, discussion, and conclusion. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles, for that. And I think I'm trying to lure Dr. Osita to join us in this conversation. Dr. Osita, if you're able to unmute, that would be great. And Mr. Babajide, is also time to also get you to give us some insight regarding Jude's question on communicating and the extent extent of GMOs currently. And I think if you look at how we are having conversations on GMOs, I always marvel at the extent of misinformation that currently exists regarding how some people don't know how extensive this has been. I would be back but I would like to bring in Mr. Mohammed to share his thoughts on this subject. Mr. Mohammed, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you, Mr. Charles, for putting that context. I think I personally am not in support of GMOs, and I totally understand the points of view from Mr. Charles, because over here I engage with a lot of tomato farmers from grassroots communities, and we all know that over here, this part of the world, some of them get their seeds from the tomato they harvested. But having secured some of those GMOs, of course, the output is amazing, the productivity is good, but they cannot be able to use those seeds from the tomato they harvested for the next farming season, which is something that we need to ask ourselves. Why is that happening? Because we all know that when we harvest maize, soya beans, tomato, or what we have, in our farms, we usually save some of it for the next farming season. And with the exploration of GMOs, we are losing that authority. And definitely, I'm afraid of the fact that even though we might be moving towards food security, but our food systems might be controlled by those biotech companies coming up with these GMOs. And of course, we are a developing world where a majority of our people solely depends on agriculture. And if we don't have free flow of access to these seeds, definitely there is a very big problem. So it's like we are moving from frying pan into the real fire. So definitely, I think in communicating these narratives, we have to be transparent and accountable to the information we are putting out to the public for them to better understand, oh, these are the pros and cons of this particular species. And if you are okay with it, definitely you can't blame anyone else with the consequences. That is why I told you earlier at South Africa, we've been working tirelessly to ensure that these indigenous species of crops and trees and shrubs, we keep preserving them, because we are afraid of such a scenario whereby only the biotech companies control our food systems. Thank you.
Okay, for journalists that are on this call, I've been doing something. I'm not sure if you've been picking it, which is teasing out potential story ideas for you to work on. And I think the exchanges you just heard right now is a really, really good story to work on. I just want to spell that out at the moment. So for you to actually be picking stories that you can work on, furthering this conversation. And I think there is a lot of overplays between climate change and biotech. But I think one of the things that we want to take from this conversation and going forward, which is why I'd like to bring in Mr. Babajide from Nutrition International, is what is the way forward? Where are we at the moment? How do we see the desire to tackle malnutrition? And Dr. Osita and Mr. Vajide from the Nutrition International, what are your guidances regarding tackling this issue of malnutrition or nutritional deficiency and still not putting the environment at risk as far as climate change is concerned? I don't know if Dr. Osita would like to take that question right now, or Mr. Babajide.
Okay, I think I can start, and
Yes.
my country director can probably go on. So I will say that climate change has given us have changed a couple of mindsets, and we need to be able to see how best we'll be able to accommodate this. One of the things that needs to happen is how our agricultural system can adapt to the issue of climate change. And I think that is where the GMO factor comes into it. If you look at certain studies that have been done, even if you look at what SIGA, which is the world's largest global agricultural innovation network, especially if you look at their research on climate change, agriculture, and food security, they've already estimated that over time, about 3% of land in Africa, which supports about 35 million people, will no longer be available to grow maize, which is the most staple crop that cuts across the sub-Saharan Africa. If you also look at potato yield across the globe, they've talked about a decrease of about 32% by 2069, which means that we have to find a way to adapt to those changes. Adaptation, as explained by Dr. Charles, and thank you, Dr. Charles, for that good explanation. It's just because we want to be able to ensure that food is available across the locality within the country. So I'll give an example of the orange-fleshed sweet potato, which is also part of the potato family. It's important to us because of the beta carotene or the high proforma vitamin A that it contains. I think it started with interaction between Dr. Charles Institute and International Potato Center with some international organizations where this was research into and different varieties that could survive within our environment were able to come into place. And I think that has helped in a way to be able to ensure that we have this variety available across the country in a way that will be sustained. And I think the major thing is how can we ensure that we have sustainability factored into our adaptation processes. We have different aspects when it comes to potato development. Still using the orange fair sweet potato, you have the vine multiplication aspect, where some people really go into ensuring that the different vines are well preserved and are multiplied. And I think this is also where the extension services come into play. How well do we teach our farmers on what they need to do? Because there's always an assumption that, oh, because I've been cultivating potato for the past 20, 30 years, it is going to be the same issue or the same processes that I will use. Extension services is very important because for every variety that comes out, there's a certain procedure that needs to be followed. If those procedures are not followed effectively, the tendency that replication of that variety will happen easily, will be reduced. And I think it's something that we need to take forward to be able to ensure that information we provide to the farmers are adequate, they are appropriate for what they need to do, and also look at the value chain. What other things do we need to bring into place to be able to ensure that every aspect of the value chain has adequate manpower to be able to ensure that they are effectively implemented so that the cycle will not be broken. And I think it's a long process that we always just need to be patient, to follow through with those process. Also looking at how this affects nutrition. You know, one major thing that we've looked at, or one major thing that has really played out is, and I will just probably just take us back a little to even what surveys are saying about the nutritional status of our vulnerable group in country. So if you look at the 2021 National Food Consumption and Micronutrient Survey, we already have a malnutrition problem. It is already there. It's not coming. It is there. And with the issue of climate change and issue of not adapting well to agricultural processes to ensure food security is enhanced and to ensure that nutrition security can also be improved on, we already have situation like stunting, which is like long-standing malnutrition rates already high. So we have the survey shows us that is around 33.8% presently, whereas it decreased by about 3.2% from NDHS 2018. We have ongoing malnutrition indices increasing. We have wasting rates that has increased by 5% from 2018 to 2011, which is now stands at 11.5%. We have underweight indicator that has increased by 3.5% to stand at 25.5% from 2018, which means things are already going haywire. So what can we do? That's why we have to have this concerted effort and a stakeholders engagement to ensure that what is being done in the agricultural sector is sensitive to nutrition, is helping within the health sector, and is also helping within the wash environment to be able to ensure that we have an holistic approach to what needs to be done. And I think that's how we need to be able to look at it, not pushing aside any segment, but trying to see how we can bridge that gap and ensure that everybody has a role to play and they play their role in a way that will be beneficial to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babajide. Before I bring in Dr. Michael, I'd like to know if Dr. Sita would also want to make any remarks, and at least from a policy direction perspective, if Dr. Sita wants to also add some thoughts, would welcome your thoughts, Dr. Sita. No.
Yeah. Good evening.
Yeah,
sorry, I actually missed the question, but I would align with discussions of my colleague, whom of course represent us on this meeting. If you can repeat the question, then I can give you those perspectives that you want.
The question is, how do we move forward, sorting out the dilemma between miscommunication of GMOs and its relevance in tackling vitamin and nutrient deficiency?
Okay, yeah, I think there is need for proper engagement between the government and the people. A lot of farmers are apprehensive as to the position of the GMOs on their crops and the future of the local crops, perhaps. So I think the avenue that exists for communication, engagement, and then sharing experiences across board will hence to build confidence, both of the people and also of those key players. So I haven't seen enough communication in that aspect. I think the government will need to also find out how to demonstrate some of the results that have been shared in other locations, so that people will be able to see what evidence lies within the use of these current innovations. But beyond that, some of the work we do are basically on the areas of supplementation and fortification. So if GMOs provide enabling environment for scaling up those opportunities, and I would always be willing to support that. But where it comes to be proven to be counterproductive or counter-effective to the desires to have nutritious meals for people and also to boost outcome of their crop yields, I think is something we also want to find out and do more research in that direction. Once more, it's not evident whether there have been enough research done, even locally, to be able to translate what has been done in other places to our local context. If we haven't been able to explicitly investigate and interrogate some of these findings that we are sharing, in the GMO food, we need for us to engage more players to do those investigative exploration, to be able to give people the confidence that these things will work and it will be what the future holds for Nigeria food chain processes and systems. That would be our policy directive in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will now go back to Dr. Michael. Dr. Michael, so looking at all these conversations from the journalists, from Mr. Mohammed, and of course from the team at Nutrition International, As an expert in this space that has been in the agricultural ministry sector for more than 3 decades, how do you see, what is your guidance regarding marshalling and putting all of these different stakeholders' perspectives together and recording progress? How do you think we can make progress on these issues that I've been discussing today? What are your thoughts, Dr. Michael?
Thank you very much, the moderator. The issue of GMO has come to stay. The only thing is being a new infection, as Dr. Amadi said, people are afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, the ministry through our research institutes have been able to produce biofortified or biofortification in some crops. That is fortification of crops, not just the food processing. Like we have fortification of cassava, maize, sweet potato with vitamin A. And that's why we have the sweet potato we call orange flesh sweet potato now. And people are planting it successfully. So the only thing that will need to be addressed is the issue of improvement, the area of research. If we are able to develop all these things locally, that we not need to depend on external body, the issue of getting it in subsequent year will not be a problem. What is causing fear for people is when we want to plant this year, we will need to go again and buy from them instead of using what we harvested. It is the area of concern. But I believe over time, the Research Institute will be able to improve upon it. Because if farmers are to depend on getting the seed every year, it is something that would bring the farmers under bondage. They will not be able to use the seed from previous harvest for planting. But I believe over time, our researchers should be able to improve on that.
Thank you very much. Back to my journalists, our amazing journalists whose stories are responsible for the conversations we are having today. What are your thoughts? What questions do you still have for any of the panelists that we have today? So I'm throwing the floor open to Jude, to Adam, and to Stephen. Are you still? Okay.
Hello.
Jude.
So now I'm saying this based off of the points that it's not always that solutions that the solution is fine, cut, and dried. It's not always that it's the last word. It could be something in progress. It could be something that hasn't gone quite as right as it was supposed to. In that light, I would love to see going forward how these biotech potatoes that are in the works get to be rolled out in a couple of years from now, and how farmers or growers interact with that. So looking forward, I'd love to follow it up and see how it eventually turns out. It's shown promise, but then having a larger scale, maybe nationwide or regional rollout, because it's not just Nigeria, it's a project that's cutting across 4 African countries. There's Nigeria, there's Kenya, there's Indonesia, and Bangladesh. Would love to see how this works in these countries or in these regions going forward. So it's something that I would want to keep alive over time. There's no definitive answers at the moment. We still have around a couple of years before it's finally rolled out. So that's it for now. So basically no questions, but I hope the pipeline for questions remain open going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a question or comment from our attendees. We have Toib Babalola on the line. Toib, you have the floor.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toib Babalola from Premium Times newspaper. So thanks for the insightful section. So my question goes there. So let me say, the issue of climate change it affects, let me say, majority of a majority of people in the rural areas. And therefore, we journalists, we cannot just go to the rural areas without seeing some stakeholders coming on board to help these marginalized people in terms of covering the issue of climate change over there. So one issue is that what I want to ask that, because in terms of solution journalism, you cannot just go to that community without seeing some stakeholders coming on board to help this community. So the question is, how can journalists locate, interact with stakeholders to come on board to help these people, or individuals to come on board to help these people in order for us to write a sojo for that effect? That's my question, sir. My name is Toyi Babalola.
You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. I said that's an interesting question, which is journalists being part of getting solutions to a problem that the people are facing. So, Caroline, if you can, I want you to get on this, on the limitations on how far journalists can go. It's okay if you can talk right now. Caroline, if that is the case, please, you can join me. You can answer that question. But I think Stephen also wants to say something. So we'll go to Caroline after Stephen. Stephen, you have the floor.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, there is a point which South Africa raised in our story, because while organizations like them are trying to push for nature-based solutions to farming, there are other organizations which are also promoting inorganic farming, which will bring good yield in a let's say for the now, but in the future might cause wrecks to farmlands and stuff like that. So what is the way forward? That's my question. Thank you very much.
You're mute.
Paul, why are you muting yourself again? Caroline, 2 questions for you. One from Stephen, which is what's next after writing stories from the perspective of the Solutions Journalism Africa Initiative. And the other question we had from our attendee is journalists identifying problems in areas and bringing interventions to those problems and now writing about that intervention as a solutions journalism story. So what are your thoughts on these 2 issues?
If I can start with, I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
What next after writing solution stories? I think it's our responsibility as journalists. My background is fully journalism, having worked for over 2 decades as a journalist. And for me, with solution journalism is to look at the impact the story is having after you filed your story. So it's our responsibility as journalists to follow up on the story. And I really like this engagement because then we get to go back and ask questions regarding some of the stories that we are doing. And within the questions that we're asking, we are also getting to get new ideas of stories that we can follow up on. I think it was Jude talking about when the biotech potatoes will be, because it's not yet completely done, will be done. And I think for us is to follow up on such cases to find out, is it complete? Has it started? Have the solutions started trickling down to the communities by following up on those stories? But apart from that, as journalists, I think the key thing is to look at the impact. Are we reaching the intended, audiences? And in this case, when I talk to audience, I do not just mean the communities that we are reporting from or to, but it also means has it reached the policy holders? So, and by this is to making sure that in your stories you also get reaction, comments, and follow up of the stories that you're working on. So, what next? That is what I'd say we need to do as journalists.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the interesting question around journalists finding a problem somewhere, bringing solutions to where those problems are, and now writing on that.
I think Amadi was saying something.
No. Okay, so
Okay.
the question is journalists finding a problem somewhere, engaging people that are solving that problem to come and solve that problem, and now writing about that solution is as a story. So what are your thoughts on that approach to solutions journalism?
Responses are from, problems that communities are encountering. So I think as long as you can get evidence of the responses that are being undertaken by communities or by, let's say, organizations or by initiatives, as long as you can, it's evidence backed. I think that is what we're talking about solution journalism, because it's not just reporting on solutions that do not have any kind of evidence. So you need to find out, is there enough evidence to support that actually this solution that I'm covering to this particular problem is actually working? So that is one way of looking at whether a solution is working, and one way of knowing whether the problem has been solved. Number two, as I always say in some of my writings that I share on LinkedIn, is that it's not about PR. We're not going to promote biotech potatoes. We're also going to look at what are the insights that we are learning from the people who've come up with this initiative. I'm sure there've been lessons along the day. So even the insights that they've learned along the day should be part of the reporting that we are doing, and also the limitation. So it's a whole, it's really a whole story, not just looking at one side, but the whole story, to make sure that we are actually answering the issue of solutions to problems.
Okay, thank
you
you very much.
So you can start with a problem, but then go out and look at what is the solution to this particular problem, and has it been backed by evidence?
Yes, okay, thank you very much. We have Babajide and Adam raising their hands. So we'll go back to back. Don't wait for me to come, Babajide. What's your question? Immediately followed by Adam. In that order.
Okay, so mine is not a question, it's just a follow-up to what Caroline said. And I think and I really appreciate our response. And I think one of the things that journalists should do is just to ensure that verified processes are what they report on. It's not just based on one person saying this, but based on things that are really happened and going through processes that have been verified to be true. Also talking about what worked, why did it work, how safe are they? Then looking at the human angle stories, just to be able to, like was done in some of the stories on news items that were highlighted today, just to be able to bring the human factor into every solution or every intervention that has been done. And how is this spreading? Because it's one thing to have this intervention implemented in one community. Are we having a real community diffusion? Is it going from one community to the other? What are we learning from them? Because that helps not only the beneficiaries, but it also helps people in development work or in the NGO sector to be able to see what needs to be done or what needs to be improved on, just to be able to promote some of this. Thank you. Over.
Adam?
Can I just add something, Paul, to what has been said?
Okay, you can.
Yeah, and the other thing of looking at solution stories, I know one of the challenges we face a lot when we are training and coaching journalists is that there are no enough solution stories going round. But we always remind them that you can find solutions to some of these systemic problems that you're having in our communities by even looking at what other people in other regions or communities have been able to solve that particular problem. Because if you look at the issue of blight, let's say like in the issue of potatoes, how is Kenya, for instance, how has it managed to deal with this issue? So by comparing with what other people are also doing, I think that can also give us a way of an inroad into how we can cover solution stories.
Thank you. Adam.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I have two questions, one for Dr. Adeboye and the other for Caroline. The question to Dr. Adeboye is what we have spoken extensively, myself, Enoch, and Mohammed, about what South Africa is doing in terms of helping farmers adopt climate resilient measures in their farming activities. And obviously this have been working. Of course, there's also room for follow of stories to see, how these engagements, how these interventions have, have yielded results. And I hope we'll be able to do that. I've spoken to Chibuike previously on this, but I wanted to know from policy perspective, from Dr. Adeboye, what are they doing to adapt these measures, to look at it closely? Mohammed is here, he's from South Africa. You can easily, engage with him and find out more about this initiative and see how it can be scaled, like I said previously, because there's a limit to what South Africa as a small non-profit can do. But if the government comes in and decides to adapt and scale this measure to other Nigerian farmers, it will go a long way in addressing our food security challenges. Now, also my second question to Caroline has to do with, I am the editor-in-chief of the African news page, and what our focus area is the continent as a whole. And I've been speaking, I also spoke to Chibuike about the idea of doing cross-border stories. As it is now, the stories coverage, in terms of geographic area is limited to Nigeria, and in terms of the partnership between Nigeria Health Watch and the Solutions Journalism Network. Caroline, now that you're here, can we explore, working with Nigeria Health Watch, the possibility of, working with our newsrooms to do cross-border stories? You just spoke about, the solution in Kenya that, farmers in Nigeria can adapt, farmers in South Africa can adapt. So is there any, can we start talking about, a continental kind of approach to this solutions journalism, so that, we can report stories, of solutions happening in Kenya, for example, and what is happening in, let's say, Tanzania, what is happening in Nigeria, what is happening in Liberia, so that ultimately, we can, because our challenges have come to realize from reporting, from around the continent, for some time, are quite similar. So if a solution is working in Nigeria, it's most likely going to work in Kenya or say Burundi. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Looking at the time, so I will want Caroline to put a thought to that and capture a response in her last remarks, because we are really, really running out of time. I don't want to keep everybody waiting beyond the planned, the proposed time for completion. So, Caroline, I would like you to answer that question and wrap it up with your closing remarks.
Yes, I think just to say that his question has actually preempted some of the ideas that we are planning on doing with Nigeria Health Watch. That is Vivian and Chibuike leading that team. And not just with cross-border reportage, between West Africa and East Africa, but we're also thinking of broadening even an engagement like this one, whereby instead of having all the, the guests, all the panelists coming from, Nigeria alone, we can broaden it to ensure that we are having guests from across the region. So yes, it's under discussion, and we are really hoping that in our next project, those are some of the ideas that we are planning to implement. So thank you for that question. And it's also good to know that we're on the right track when it comes to idea fruition for solution journalism across the region. That said, should I wrap it up? I still see that we have a few minutes.
Everybody will still be able to take 1 minute each. So that's why I'm saying
okay, I can
I'd
start.
like to get some feedback. So I'd like to thank our journalists for being amazing, for being here. But I would like to take a minute, 30 seconds each from our panelists to give us their last remarks. Dr. Charles, you have the floor. So what are your last words on this conversation?
Yeah, I think the Sojo idea is great because it brings a dimension that is topical at this time, and you want to assure that GMOs are safe. They are very safe. The public, yes, they are right to be apprehensive, but there's really nothing to worry about because it goes through a lot of rigorous regulation before they are released. So all these agencies involved are also mindful of the safety of the population and will not allow anything that is not safe to be released to the population. So GMOs, both those that have been released and those that are in the pipeline, they are safe and they are addressing very critical challenges our crops are facing, especially during this period that we are experiencing climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. Mr. Mohammed, what are your last words for us? Mr. Mohammed Ibrahim, are you there? So we'll come back to Mr. Mohammed. Let's go to...
Yeah, I am.
Okay, very good. Please have the floor.
Yeah, actually, for me, what I would recommend, especially for you as the people that stands between the reality of what is happening and the information the public consumes, I would recommend working tirelessly to ensure that the right narrative is communicated to the public for them to make informed decisions about, especially this particular topic we are discussing on, which is the food systems, because it is all about us and the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The amazing people from Nutritional International, Mr. Babajide and Dr. Ostita. Any last word for us?
Okay, if I may. Okay, Babajide, go first.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sita. So for us in Nutrition International, I think we will continue to work on a better understanding of the pathways linking climate change with food security and nutrition security, because this would definitely help us to be able to effectively develop interventions that will ensure that the population will have access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food. So this is in line with working with climate smart and nutrition sensitive food systems, with promotion of improved dietary diversity and also fortification. And also one key thing that I think we all need to also do, which we from Nutrition International will also be behavioral change communication, which will definitely reach the beneficiaries on how adaptation of locally available foods can also be promoted, looking at rich diversified diets and a promotion of home gardens and a couple of things. These are just in line to be able to ensure that we, apart from rebuilding resilience within the food system, we're also building resilience within the beneficiaries, the beneficiaries that will benefit from the food system. One of the things we've also been doing is we've also been working with the African Development Bank and the World Bank in trying to have robust nutrition smart investment, which cuts across agriculture, education, health, social protection, water, sanitation, and hygiene, which we feel that will also be a robust strategy to be able to ensure that there's interconnectivity among the different interventions on what would definitely improve the food system and also build beneficiary resilience to the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Dr. Sita? Okay.
Yeah, the other aspect I will just mention is issues around engagement and our support as an ally to government in ensuring that government policies are well understood, both by key players and partners and stakeholders, as the case may be. We would also be happy to work with the government and with other key stakeholders to review policies and say that these policies are aligned with strategic interests of the government and the people, ensuring that climate change issues are well addressed in the context of nutrition within the country and in the sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not the least, Dr. Michael Adigboye. Any last words for us?
Yes, thank you very much. Just as I said earlier, the issue of climate change has come to stay, and government is now relenting effort to make sure the problem is resolved, at least to reduce the effect on people. And that's why presently the focus is on what we call climate smart agriculture, which involves the adoption of drought-resistant crop, adoption of agroforestry techniques, and conservation agriculture. So with this, we are able and will be able to tackle the problem of climate change. And when we are talking of conservation agriculture, we mean less disturbance on the soil. That's minimum tillage of the soil. And we make sure the soil is covered always through cover crop residue being left on the soil, and the mulching. And apart from that, there is a need to diversify in crop production, like a method of crop rotation, mixing crop, and intercropping. So all this will make sure that the soil health is maintained. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate everybody, and I'll yield the floor to Chibuike Alagboso from Nigeria Watch to end this call. Thanks very much for having me. I really had fun, and see you on the next one. Chibuike, over to you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for expertly moderating this conversation. Really met the objectives why we started it, and we are glad that how it has been received, because essentially it's how do we make sure that these solutions to risk continue to inform more conversations, and what better way to ensure that they also lead to practice same that day. So really excited and happy how this whole thing played out, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you to all our panelists, all our speakers who spent 2 hours of their time to have this engaging conversation. And thank you all to all the participants. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us, the journalists, even the other organizations who work in the agro and nutrition space, not just the journalists who were in the audience. Thank you all for making out time to be here. Dr. Osita and his team, Mr. Babajide, Dr. Michael, Caroline, Charles, George, Adam, Enoch, really appreciate. And to my team at Nigeria Health Watch who helped to conceptualize this and make it happen, really grateful to you all. So we'll be sending further information in our follow-up email, especially our upcoming Future of Health conference, which essentially is going to revolve around these conversations too. That interplay between climate change and health. How does it impact on health? That's what the Future of Health conference is focused on this year. It's an annual event, and this is the 10th anniversary. So we'll be doing it this year. We also have a call for pitches for journalists to look out for, stories like this. We'll be announcing that call later next week, and also sending out more details to those that registered. Thank you all, and goodbye from all of us at Nigeria Health Watch.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Bye.
much. Thank you.
Bye.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Paul.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Paul, do you have any final words?